Game number 63 for the Boston Celtics back at TD Garden, where they'll look to make it 4 wins in a row when they take on the Charlotte Hornets. Joseph Pavone here for CLNS Media. I'm alongside Nick Detting of SB Nation's At the Hive and the Locked On Hornets podcast. Welcome back, Nick.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
So the Hornets have put together 5 wins in a row. They head into Boston feeling pretty good about themselves. And now plenty of talk around the Hornets even before the 5th win in a row of making a possible playoff berth. What's your take on that, and what do you think has been the reason behind Charlotte's recent success?
Well, I'm a little surprised how well they're playing after the break. Honestly, they kind of stumbled into the All-Star break. And I figured, give this 5-6 games, and there might be some changes in the rotation. We might see some younger guys, but that has not been the case. A lot of it has been three-point shooting. They have not been a good three-point shooting team much of the season. But actually, I just saw this stat tonight. Since January 31st, they actually have the highest three-point percentage in the NBA, even above Golden State, which just kind of really took me by surprise. A lot of that, I think, has been the play these past 5 games. They really shot the ball well from deep, and it's obviously helping them.
So before this stretch, obviously, it's been sort of an up and down season for Charlotte. Was there a sense of frustration throughout the city? I mean, I feel like this team has made steps into the right direction the past couple of years and then taken steps back, and it's sort of been a going back and forth. What's the general consensus in the city and the direction of the organization led by Michael Jordan? Is there still trust in his guidance in Charlotte?
I don't know. I mean, it's pretty divisive, to be honest, at the moment. People feel like they're just sort of meddling in no man's land, which you can make a pretty fair case for. It's been frustrating to see, especially this season, with this team looked so good on paper, to just see them stumble out of the gate. There's been some injuries and things, but I think the excuses don't add up to kind of what's been going wrong with this team. And there's been just a lot of with taking Malik Monk over Donovan Mitchell, it's early. It's too early to make any call, but right now it's looking like another maybe missed opportunity to draft, above average player. I mean, you see what Mitchell is doing in Utah, and Monk hasn't been able to break into the rotation this year. So yeah, there's frustration over how the team is playing this year. There's frustration because they don't seem to have a lot of options financially moving forward. So this has been, this winning streak has been a nice change, because at least now they're starting to look like the team that many expected at the beginning of the season.
This edition of the Celtics pregame report is brought to you by DraftKings.com. Head over to DraftKings.com and use the promo code CLNS for a free sign-up with your first deposit and a shot at a share of $10,000 in total prizes. That's DraftKings.com. Use the promo code CLNS and get paid. Nick, the Raptors have been on fire lately. They now lead the conference with the Celtics inching behind them. Which team do you think will ultimately grab that top spot heading into the postseason as we now head into the final 6 weeks of the regular season, the final stretch where everything will be decided in the end?
Well, I think you kind of mentioned this to me before we came on, how they both face off against each other towards the end of the season. Toronto has been just so good, 8-2 in their last 10. They played the Hornets here right before the All-Star break and just dominated them. It just seemed like they had 10 guys that could hurt you from anywhere on the floor. I want to give them the slight edge, but at the same time, they're not my favorite. I do think Boston would probably be my favorite in the East. So I think seeding won't necessarily matter so much if it's 1 and 2. The Celtics would still face off against Toronto in the Eastern Conference Finals if that were the end there. But I think Toronto, as good as they've been, particularly at home, I think if they can maintain that home dominance, I think they'll probably edge out Boston. All
right, prediction time, Nick. Who wins tonight?
Oh man, so I think last time I gave you all the edge. It's like this. I'll say this. I do think Boston probably wins this, but looking at the schedule since the Hornets have now gone on this winning streak, if they were to win tonight, I would start to feel like this whole winning streak, this whole playoff push is legitimate, because this is now proving, okay, they can beat Chicago, they can beat Detroit, but can they actually be a legitimate title contender? So I think Boston wins, but I do think that Charlotte will put up a little bit better fight than they have earlier in the year.
All right, he is Nick Detting of SB Nations at the Hive. Make sure you check him out on Twitter at Nick Detting, and of course, check out his podcast, the Locked On Hornets podcast, which I'm sure is going to be very interesting moving forward because of this winning streak. Right? If I had to guess, Nick, is that correct?
Yeah, no, it's certainly more interesting and I think enjoyable to run a podcast when the team is winning than when you have to kind of like, even if you're talking negative, even if you're trying to find silver linings, it's certainly just much easier and enjoyable to talk when things are going well. Speaking
as a podcast host who had to make the transition from the new Big Three era into the Brad Stevens era, I know exactly what you're talking about, Nick. Trust me. Hey, Nick, I appreciate it, man. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Well, that's going to wrap up this edition of the Celtics pregame report. Make sure you check out the Garnett report after the game on the CLNS Media YouTube channel for all the full-length interviews and, of course, plenty of reaction from the parquet from myself and Mike Petraglia. We got you covered. It's the Garnett report on YouTube for CLNS Media. Weekday shows air on the Celtics newsfeed channel on iTunes, Stitcher, and the CLNS Media mobile app. For today's Boston Celtics pregame report with Josue Pavone, this is Josue Pavone signing off.